I'd like to call this meeting, May 4th, Town Council Special Workshop meeting to order. I'd like to open with invocation, pledge of allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we ask your blessing on this meeting. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Roberts. Councilmember Roberts?
Here.
Councilmember Zamitis?
Here.
Councilmember Noble?
Here.
Vice Mayor Cummings?
Here.
And Mayor Hell.
Present.
Manager Cavalli?
Here.
And Attorney Mora.
Present. Okay, we're going to open up a public comment this evening, and tonight we're going to make sure that we stick to the 3 minutes, and we're going to ask you to step up here and speak, and no speaking from your chairs. Randy's back, and he won't tolerate anything but that. So, also, I want to say one word before we get going here. I would like tonight's meeting to go nice and smooth. I want everybody to be very civil, not get all fired up and yelling at one another, gnashing of teeth, pointing fingers, so on and so forth. If it comes to that, I'm going to have 3 warnings. First 2 warnings, it'll just say I'm passing out a warning. The 3rd time, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting and cancel the meeting and come back when we don't have, when tempers have settled down. Do we all understand one another tonight? Okay. At this time, I'd like to open up public comment. Has anybody got anything they'd like to say? Yes, ma'am.
Teresa's minus 5201 57th Street North. I'm just curious, looking at the agenda, I noticed that there's going to be a special presentation by Imagine That, and I'm just curious how they got on the agenda. Why are they presenting when services have not yet gone out for bid? I feel like it's creating a bias amongst council and potentially even residents, especially after the last meeting when they were seen talking to some council members behind locked doors after the meeting. So I would just ask council to follow the rules that are set forth in our charter for such events.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Okay. At that time, I'd like to go to workshop discussion and talk about the town manager transition. The special presentation by Rob Duncan from Imagine That.
One second,
No, not an issue.
I figured there might be some questions on who Rob Duncan is with Imagine That, so I wanted to start there if you wouldn't mind. I actually wrote some comments so I don't miss anything. And I'm going to address everyone on this side because everyone on this side doesn't know who I am.
Oh, if you're addressing them, I'd like to hear what you're saying, so speak to the microphone.
Am I not loud enough?
Yeah.
So, my name is Rob Duncan. I'm the managing director of Imagine That Performance. It's a consulting company. And for the last 2 years, I've been facilitating the city.
Don't mind holding on just 1 second, she still can't hear, or if you could hold that up, please.
Can you hear me? Just the microphone issue, right? So for the last 2 years, I've been facilitating city and county manager think tanks. What these are is this is people throughout the country. I have 5 different groups, 12 people in a group, and these are managers that are running cities and counties that get together in sessions to discuss the various challenges cities and counties are dealing with. That puts me in the room with a lot of city and county managers, all right? It's a special profession. The city manager profession is very special. And it's very difficult because every single one has at least 5 bosses. I have some that have 21. Okay, they each have 5 bosses, and they all have at least 5 employees, but no other person working with them. So it's a very isolated position. And I mention that because during the pandemic, there really was limited ability for people to get together, and that's how my business was formed. And my company's only 2 years old, but we've been doing these think tanks for the last 2 years so that they can actually get together and have conversations when they couldn't. With 5 groups, 12 people in a group, I have about 60 members right now, and that played into a little bit of the history of the town of Kenneth City. Now, before I explain that, I just want to let you know, tonight's an interesting night for me because I found out this morning that one of my members has passed away. This is a current city manager, not somebody who's retired, somebody just died in the chair. So I ask for a little patience tonight, a little bit of understanding, and as we go through, this is, we do realize there are other things that are important in life, especially life. Now, in Kenneth City, last year, when there was no town manager, you had FCCMA come in here, Ms. Pam Brancasio, and she helped facilitate through the process. She had participated in some of the think tanks that I was having. She reached out to Jocelyn. Some of you know who Jocelyn is. Okay, but before Jocelyn was here, she was also participating in think tanks. Jocelyn let me know, hey, there was a position in Kenneth City. I knew your previous town manager for 6 years, actually. And she said, hey, Kenneth City's looking for somebody. I knew somebody. And I actually put Lynn in touch with Pam, and that's how Lynn came down here as the intern. At the time, there was no staff because other people had walked out. And when Lynn came through the door, she asked us to help. And that's how Imagine That Performance started helping the town of Kenneth City. At the time, our role was to help the town manager. That's what the company normally does. We're not here to work with councils. We're here to work with town managers because in this circle, when people don't have jobs, I help them find jobs, I help them do some work with projects with other cities and counties. That's what my company does. So that's how we started here. When Ms. Ladner left, we were asked to switch gears really quickly, and one of the people I was helping became the interim town manager. And when that happened, we went from trying to help Ms. Ladner get the city into a different place, to just trying to keep operations running until a new manager could be hired. Okay? That's the history of Imagine That Performance with the town of Kenneth City. When Pete started being the city manager, we did help with a few small projects, but this year we haven't been helping out with Kenneth City at all. Right now, I'm working with a bunch of other clients. One of them is City of Deerfield Beach, doing 2 rather large projects with them. The previous interim manager that was here is currently the interim town manager at the City of Temple Terrace. And I'm working on a few projects with them, helping them facilitate through various discussions. I've also been asked to help out with 3 different cities with facilitating various dialogues, helping the city managers work with their councils to kind of talk about the future and getting on the same page with where they are trying to go. Okay, so when you look at me, help you understand, this is all I am really doing as a business, and I think why I was asked to come here. Now, I was not given any specific direction as to what tonight's presentation should be about. 0. Okay, I didn't ask. Actually, I did ask. I asked 2 people, but they didn't want to speak to me. Okay, but I did ask, and I asked for a reason because I understand when it gets divisive, there's usually a half of the dais that feels like they're not being heard, and that's what I wanted to hear coming in. And I hope we can have that conversation tonight, but as a conversation, not as what we saw at the last meeting. Last meeting was the last one I attended since last year, and I don't know what's been going on in between, okay, but that was the only experience I really had. Now, as we go through, I'm gonna ask you, if you wouldn't mind, to write down notes. What I'd like to do as I go through some of the things here is kind of just have a little bit of a one-way dialogue for a very short period of time, so that if we start debating on each slide, we can be here, in an uncontrolled fashion. So, but any question you have, or any thought you have on anything that's presented, we really need to hear it. We do. So please, and if you're writing and I see your head down, I will try to pause so you have time to write, because I take a lot of notes. Okay, so I understand if you have questions, Write them down, and we will talk about them at the end, okay? And we'll let you all decide how we're gonna do that, okay? Is everybody okay with that as a plan? So before we go forward, what I would like to know is if any of you have a pressing thing to say before we start. If somebody has a prepared statement, I prefer that prepared statement to be read now.
I do.
Please, thank you.
You didn't expect anything less, did you? Okay, first of all, I'm very disappointed in you, Rob, that, you know what the rules are for Kenneth City, and you still spoke to 3 council members, I being one of the council members that would not speak to you outside of the meeting, because, in fear of breaking the sunshine law, because you will be a vote amongst us whether or not we hire you to come in and help the town. So that is why I chose not to speak to you. I'm not quite sure, at the last meeting, there were several of you outside having a discussion. I'm not sure how you got invited without it being brought up to the council first, before you were even asked to prepare this ordeal that you have going here tonight. But I feel like we should have all been asked for you to come here before you showed up, and we should have been aware that you were coming to present something to the town. And at the end, you can tell me, because I'm gonna ask the question, how much we paid your company the last time you were here.
$67,200.
And over what duration of time?
I don't have that answer, I'm sorry, I just know the total.
You just got the total of the work that was provided, okay?
Yes, sir.
I think it was more than that, because we paid you, Jocelyn, and
You paid Imagine That, that's all you paid.
do I now?
You didn't pay any of the staff of Imagine That Performance directly, you only paid Imagine That Performance. None of them became your employees, you went.
We paid that, you, and you paid them.
Correct, you went that entirety of a duration without paying a town manager, a town clerk, or any other town employees because there weren't any here. So that $67,000 over 4 months was the entirety of your staff payroll. And if you do the calculations, you will find out you actually saved money during that time. So yes, you did pay Imagine That Performance. However, what you paid Imagine That Performance is less than what you would have paid if you had your full staff here that didn't walk out. We can do that math and put it up. I didn't prepare that, so I didn't think there was any question that we were here, especially at the rates we were here at. We do nothing but help with the city. But we can do that if you would like. We can bring the whole accounting back on what you were paying your previous staff and what you paid Imagine That Performance. I know you paid us less.
Okay, no, I don't need that, an estimate of 67,000. I just wanted to let you know that I'm disappointed that you came to other council members without coming to a meeting first to let all of us know at one time that you were invited here.
Sure, I had one council member call me and request that I come to a meeting. I had another council member call me and request that I come to a meeting. If I had numbers to call, I would have called each of the other 3. Because of sunshine laws, there's only so much that can be done there.
And I would just like to make a little informative tidbit to the residents here. The rate that we paid Imagine That Performance was at a very kind discounted rate because, you know, they understood the crunch we were in, but we were lucky enough to put Pete in place right before that discount ran out. And I have a feeling if we were to acquire their services again, I can't say, but there's no way to guarantee that we'll have a discounted rate again. So the fact that it was cheaper than our employees, that may not be the same now because it was a significant discounted rate. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any other comments?
You were invited here in that first meeting to talk about our accounting service. Nothing to do with Pete, okay? It had nothing to do with Pete. It was about the accounting service. And how could we correct not having an accounting service is what you were invited for. After you were invited for, that's when Pete turned in his resignation and everything else, and you kind of changed gears, you know, with what you needed to be. So I just kind of wanted to explain that, how that happened. You were not here also on your first visit under any type of official business whatsoever, because someone even asked, can I talk to Mr. Duncan? And I said, no, you cannot. He's not a guest here. He's just observing what we're doing.
Thank you. And since the meeting last week, as a team, and I have 5 other city managers that have helped me prepare for tonight, as a team, imagine that performance invested over 25 hours in researching and preparing for this presentation. We are not a current vendor and have not been hired for tonight's activity. We're not given clear direction, so that's why I was asking for a little bit of patience. Okay? But Councilwoman Zemitis was right. There are certain rates that this company charges. And we have over 25 hours invested without a bill coming to Kenneth City and preparing for tonight. So when we ask for a dialogue and ask for civility, I am asking for a little bit of respect because, again, this is my gift to you, okay? And I don't have an ask. I don't. This is not a presentation asking for a contract. There is no proposal that comes with this. This is just a dialogue. And right now, it seems like this council needs a dialogue, mostly with each other, and I'm hoping that at least this can become a little bit of a foundation so you can have the dialogue you need to have. Okay? So where are we? And these 5 items are the things that I'm hoping that I can touch on a little bit, and I think these are things that need to be discussed on this council. Some tonight, maybe some another time, but there are a few things that really need to be discussed. And, you know, while I understand we want to get right to the action, our town manager gave notice, we need to address that. It's really hard to recruit a replacement if there's no overall vision and executable strategy that people are aware of. And that is really hard when 5 different people are saying what amounts to about 5 different things. So there needs to be a little bit of a coming together. I know what the vision is, but what does that mean to the council? And that's something that I think you heard a little bit last time when you were in the recruitment, but you're going to hear a lot more of it this time based on what's transpired in the last year. So the any incoming town manager, if you're down that path, it should be presented with a vision and a plan. So things like, what are we proud of? What do we do that we're really, really proud of? What would we like to improve? Where do we want to be 10 years from now? The town manager is supposed to try to help you execute that strategy, but to come in and try to figure out where everyone is and then develop a strategy all on their own, that's a really tough ask for a town manager. That's really not what they do. Is this big enough for everyone to see?
No.
Probably not, yeah, sorry. I tried to make this as big as I possibly could. So what is being presented here is exactly what's in the town budget. And what it has is the town manager salary. Again, this is in the budget, so this is what's in the budget, not necessarily actually what's paid. Okay, I want to make sure I'm clear for this year. And it has the various salaries for the administrative positions, and then all the expenses associated with those positions. So you understand what the all-in cost is for having people in chairs. Okay, so the total cost for the 4 administrative employees was $277,000. If you take the salaries and factor in what the benefits cost is, it's around 41.6% is on top of what the base pay is, what your total all-in costs are. So if we have someone here that's making $100,000, we're paying $141,000, right, for that person to be here, okay? So that's the whole purpose of this. It's a 41.6 rate is your current benefits rate. We may not like it, but that's what's in your budget, okay? Does everyone understand this part? So when you look at the total cost of the manager, right now in the budget, it's $96,500 for your town manager. If the benefits rate is 41.6%, that's the calculation. There's a telephone stipend, there's fees associated with the conferences and the associations the town manager belongs to, and you have a total annual cost of $143,000. $153,000 in the current setup. If that amounts to across 2,000 hours, $71.77 an hour. Okay, it's just a simple calculation. Okay, this should just be fact and everyone at least understands. Now below it is a calculation based on what I know to be the standard rate, typical rate in Pinellas County. I have Pinellas County city managers as my clients. $150,000 is what a typical city manager is making in Pinellas County. That's the rate, okay? And I have other clients in other areas that make way more than this. Okay, South Florida is significantly more than this. California is double. Okay, so it all depends on the location, but in this location, the average cost is $150,000. So if you break that down and then do this simple math, just a city manager, is around $220,000 a year. And I know because we're going to get to actual hourly rates, that's close to $110 an hour for a full-time employee that's going to be here for 2,000 hours. Okay. I mentioned before, Dr. Spina is over in City of Temple Terrace as an interim. They did an invitation to bid to find search firms, executive search firms, help them find their next city manager. They were actually presented last night. These are the 5 firms that were presented. There was a recommendation to choose the top one, Colin Mesner and Associates, and they authorized Steve to negotiate a contract with them. They'll be back at their next meeting to approve Bender and Associates to hire the next city manager. So the ranges here are $23,000 to $30,000 essentially, and they chose the high one because they felt like that was the best for them. This is only here because if you're looking for another city manager, you want professional help, this is about what it costs. You could piggyback on Temple Terrace, you could reach out to 5 of them here and see if they would hold that price here, or maybe even get a discount here. But just so you have an idea what professional help costs, that's what it is. Imagine that Performance does not provide this service, not interested in providing that service, plenty of competitors out there, and there are certainly ways in which you can procure this. Last week, I heard in the council meeting, and again, the mayor called me for a reason, because the accountant gave notice that he was no longer going to be here, so that's an outsourced service, something you're going to have to deal with. The attorney gave notice that, he may not be here at the end of the year, and they probably need to relook at that solicitation. If this is not my area of expertise, and it's my area of expertise, but not what's going on here. I didn't get into all the details. You may need an executive search firm. In the past, I heard about engineering when I was here last year, and the engineer even said to me, I would like to have a fresh contract. So there's a lot of different things that need to be discussed here from outsourced services. Not making a recommendation here, I'm just trying to acknowledge where the city is at, the county Kenneth City is at, and the things you need to be looking for and come help, need help trying to address. The ARPA fund, something else that is there, and proper documentation, proper planning to spend $2.5 million is something else that I'm sure is pretty important to apply up here, as well as everyone else there. And then you're beginning of budget season. This is not an ideal time to be going through a turnover of a town manager or an accountant, let alone both. Okay, that's a challenge. Right? Cities typically have multiple resources that are dedicated towards this activity. And here, based on experience last year, there's not a lot of resources to be helping with this, so this is the challenge. A couple of significant challenges is with the use of reserves. So last year, because of the way things transpired, we weren't able to dig in and spend resource time working on the budget. That was the plan, to help Ms. Lavin in 2006. Steve had to just kind of keep operations going, and the resource I had available to help wasn't around anymore. So last year's budget had $473,000 in spend out of reserves. And I heard complaints about that, and I agree with them. Okay, so if I was sitting on the dais, I'd probably vote no on that budget. Okay, I just want to make sure we're really clear on where I stand. And this is something that needs to be addressed going forward. Can't have a sustainable city if we're always deficit spending, and the only way is to have stability and the right resources to evaluate options. And there are options. So I told you 25 hours are invested in this. There are some opinions already about what things could be done. And I wanna just really quickly, one of the things that they asked about was, what's the revenue assessment? And I know that's an eye chart, that's just a page out of your budget. Okay, it's just a revenue page out of your budget. And where all the revenue comes from various funds, right? But a revenue assessment is probably where things need to start. Because how are we optimizing our various revenue sources? Because if we're not optimizing the various revenue sources and we're short money, what happens is we say, well, what's the easiest knob to dial? The easiest knob to dial is add everyone's taxes, we're gonna raise everyone's property taxes, and nobody wants that, okay? Most people want that to go down. The challenge is we can't, in an inflationary market, expect to just come up with 10, 20, 30% cuts. That's probably not realistic. So when looking at the budget, we need to look at both sides of the ledger and see what optimization opportunities are there for revenue. Really, really quick cursory, here's an example. Looked at the revenue, and the revenue from permits is about 70,000 in the budget. The expenses for that department is about 90. Okay, so if we operate according to the budget, we're funding the permitting services out of the city general fund budget. Okay. In other cities, permitting is a cash cow. Twice as much revenue is coming in as expenses. And those monies are funding other government activities. Because in the budget there, it doesn't include the city manager's salary that is actually overseeing that department. Okay, so there are opportunities to look for not just cuts, but maybe revenue enhancement. Right? Should we look at permitting? Yes. Is that a problem with how much we're paying? I don't know. Are we not charging enough? I don't know. I'm not going to make a statement that it's one way or another. All I will say is some professional help to come in, compare versus other cities, probably makes sense. And that's just one item. Every single item in the budget probably needs to be done that way. And that requires resources. You could say, okay, well, you're still here for 2 months, town manager, look at that. It's just unrealistic. Okay. We need real help, real time looking at and trying to find answers for those things. Now, the recommended path is a couple of different things. And the first thing is really understanding where we are. And I think if I asked everyone in the room where we are, everyone will give a different answer. And we need to get to some unified answer where we all can agree to support, we are here, and we are going to try to get there. And we really need to know where we are, which is the proper assessments and looking at the finances, what our strategy is with the outsourced services, what we're looking to get to, how we're making sure that all these things are what we have in mind. Because when people come in thinking that we have something in mind, but we have something else in mind, we end up with bad discussions in public meetings, and we need to avoid that going forward. Okay, so knowing ourselves is the first thing, and there probably needs to be some time spent there. The other steps design the future. This is, once we know where we are, everyone getting together and talking about how do we get from here to where we really want to go. This is the vision. A safe, friendly community is what we want. How do we define that? How do we make sure we're going to be there 10 years from now? These are the discussions that I think need to happen. And then we can start working on strategic initiatives and ensuring those things go forward. So next steps, I'm guessing, okay, I gotta be honest and have a conversation with any of you. So you need to, if your town manager is leaving, you need another town manager. You need to have a strategy of how you're gonna get there. I'm gonna tell you, it's not me. So I can put you in touch, or right, we can work with, Temple Terrace is doing it. I know Town of Bel Air is gonna do it for a town manager. So there are options there, and there are other options besides them. You can go back to FCCMA, you can go any other path you want. But how you're gonna procure the next town manager is obviously an important thing. And then procure resources to assist the town manager. Right now, you still have to work on the budget. And somebody needs to be working on those things that I just discussed. And it doesn't look to me like you have the staff here to do it. Okay, that's my honest assessment, that you need help getting there, even if your town manager wasn't leaving. I don't think it's fair to put that on the town manager. These are some near-term needs. I know nobody can read this. Okay, what's here isn't as important as just understanding there's a process to deal with accounting services Code enforcement is another thing that I know has come up recently that needs to be addressed, the 2023 budget. You know, looking at staffing. And then other needs, mid to long term, right? Legal services, evaluation, building administration. These are items that really need to be looked at. Other items that could be looked at that other communities have done, not recommending, just things that in due diligence requires. Other cities have implemented things like fire services fee. You pay for fire services out of your general fund. Other communities have a fire services fee that equal it out. Okay, that can be distributed a different way. I'm not saying the city should do it or shouldn't do it, but I didn't hear the discussion since I've been around. They should be at least have a discussion. Here's what it looked like. Here's what the cities are doing. No, we don't want to do it. Thank you very much. Or maybe we should look at it. Here's how we'd offset it a different way. Okay. There's other things that can be had in the discussion in the budget season if you have the proper resources to go and evaluate what those are. So, I end with this, and yeah, man, big TVs, I thought that'd be bigger. You know, we can't change what's in the past, and we can't. And I know that's hard because there's some frustration with the past. Okay, I know that. Okay, but we're where we are, and all we can do, all we can change is the future. So I'm going to invite a conversation on what that looks like. How do we want to change the future? Where do we want to go? So with that, I don't have anything else to present, but I know I've asked you to write down some questions, so I don't mind if we start on the left side of the dais and work to the right, but if you have any questions, please,
Are you on the left, Bonnie?
Oh, my left. Sorry.
Okay.
Ms. Roberts.
Did you not help us the last time at the same time of year with the budget? Your group came in and helped out with the budget?
So when we came in last time, the budget process was just starting. And when Ms. Ladner left, Steve became the interim manager. So he was a resource that was planned to be helping Ms. Ladner with the budget, and then he became the town manager. So he assumed all the day-to-day responsibilities of managing the town and wasn't available to help with the other items. Jocelyn was also here to help assist, but without a city clerk, her 12 hours a week was spent on city clerk duties and also wasn't available for the budget. Okay, I didn't have the time, nor did we have the desire to all of a sudden have 8 resources over here because there was going to be some resistance on how much it was going to cost. So what Steve had suggested at the time was they have a plan to get a new town manager. The new town manager will be here in about 3 months. Let's just get through this and let the town manager make the necessary changes. So the budget you got was a functional budget with a deficit, with the understanding that the town manager was probably going to improve upon that performance-wise. And from what I can tell from the reports I've seen, because I did ask your town manager for a statement of where we are now, the current accountant was provided that, and right now you're not spending any of the reserves. So you could end up being in a much better path this year than what was in the plan. Okay, that's pretty good management, okay, and that's people taking care of what's going on. But without a plan, you're gonna have the same budget next time. If you're not, who's working on the budget now, and a new manager comes in, they're not gonna have enough time to properly assess everything and give you a better path.
Okay, so we had your group do the budget for us the last time. Steve did it, and you're saying that the budget was very high. Well, we trusted your company to do that budget for us, and you made a high budget. Now you're talking about stuff that we need to reduce that budget. Why would we want your company to come in and do a budget for us again? Why would we trust you not to be making even higher?
Yeah, what you had last time was an interim town manager managing your city forward based on what was presented before. What I am saying you need, and I'm not asking you to hire me. I did not ask you to hire me, because quite frankly, if 2 of the 5 of the dais have no interest in working with them as that performance, we will not offer our services. Okay? I am personally not interested. I'll make that very, very clear. If we can have some sort of agreement on here on who should be hired, that you're gonna have a hard time finding anybody. Okay, so I'm telling you right now, my opinion is you need multiple resources working on your budget. And 1 town manager and 1 clerk is not multiple resources. They have full-time jobs and they need help getting the budget together to get the budget that you are looking for. Okay, so you wanna say, oh, when you were here last time and didn't do it, if you wanna look at the world that way, you can, okay? But that's not the world that you were living in a year ago. You had, right, a police union contract that needed to be negotiated. You didn't have a town clerk, you didn't have a town manager, and your staff that was here was helping you get through that process. That process would not have been completed without the team that was here. So taking people's names and throwing them under the bus and why didn't you do it last year? That's looking backwards and trying to change the past. It's not gonna help.
I'm not throwing anybody's name under the bus, and I see us being in the same path that we were in then, because we're not gonna have an accountant, we're not gonna have a town manager, we're not gonna have any of that, so I don't see any difference in what you did then and where we are now. I see the same story going down.
Well, depending on what it is you decide to do, if you decide to ask somebody to come in and be your interim town manager, to get you through until you hire a permanent town manager, you can decide to ask for that. I won't offer that service, I'm not interested in that. Because that's just you treading water, and quite frankly, last year, you asked. I didn't ask to provide that service, you asked because we were here, and we did it because we were asked. If you ask me this year, the answer is no, because I'm not interested in you being in the same place next year as you are this year. So, right now, what I believe you need to do is you need to go down a path of actually changing what it is that you've done in the past. And that means you need to define what that change is, and find a partner that can help you get there. You wanna find other people, that's fine, you have a procurement, right, guidelines, you need to follow them. Again, I told you, I'm not here with a proposal, I don't have a contract for you to sign, I don't even have an offer. Okay, I'm just having a conversation that you need to do something different, because you are absolutely right. If what you do is wait until your town manager leaves and get an interim town manager to do the same thing, you're gonna get exactly what you have. It doesn't matter who the person is. It doesn't matter what you pay the person. It's a resource issue, and you don't have enough. I'm not saying you need to hire 3 more full-time people and keep them on payroll for the next 3 years. That's not what I'm saying. You need to go through a change process. That means infusion of talent for a short period of time, the right talent to get you where you need to be, and then that talent can go away. The best way to do that is to outsource it some way, somehow. If you want to find somebody else, that's fine. Right? Find whoever you feel is appropriate for your talent.
My concern, Rob, is what we're all up here talking about doing and everything. I don't think between the 5 of us that there's one who's up here who's an expert can say, this is what we need to do. I'm always telling my wife that I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I certainly like to surround myself with those that are. And that's the way I'm looking at you. I'm looking for you for answers, because to be real honest with you, I don't think that Barbara has an answer. I don't think that Megan has an answer. We have ideas, okay? Kyle or Bonnie down there has the ability to take this town and put it on the right path in which it needs to be. We need professional help to do so. And that's where you come in. And whatever that professional help is that you need to offer, you say, well, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that. I'm sure that you're going to teach us how to get around that and do it the proper way and to move on. Is that not correct?
That's an option. It certainly is an option. Okay, but again, it's not your only option. So it's a good, you're right, well, I wanna hold that, if you don't mind, I wanna hold that for a moment, because you're working on solutions, and I don't mind working on solutions, but I think we need to understand current concerns first.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't hear all the current concerns, then they're gonna come up after you're partway down the solution, and we're gonna derail any solution, so. Ms. Roberts, did you have anything else, any other questions,
No.
concerns? Okay,
Right.
please.
Thank you for taking the time to be here, and thank you for your presentation. Like you said, it took 25 hours, and I appreciate you not charging us for that right now in this hard time. I don't necessarily have very many questions. I followed along, easily with what you were saying. If anything, I appreciate the few revenue ideas that you threw out. I understand that our revenue income is one of our biggest issues when it comes to our town right now. I asked for the financials for the town, and we have less than a year's, budget in the bank, and that's the lowest it's been many years, and it's definitely concerning if we can't turn things around as a council and as a town, But my only thing is, regardless, like you said, you're not here with a proposal, but just to make it aware to all of you, even if we all said like, oh, we wanna hire you, we all are in love with you, we still have to go out for bid. If we're spending more than $10,000 on any like item or service, we still have to go out for bid, so.
You have, yeah, so, and I know the attorney will correct you, you have a procurement vehicle in the town, and you have to follow what the procurement guidelines are. So, I don't wanna say it's overly simple, because sometimes it's not, all right? There are various ways in which you can procure in the town, and you need to follow that, so don't limit yourself. Again, you have if you wanna hire a search firm, for example, there's 5 different people that put out a price there. In your guidelines, you may be able to just go and use that, negotiate, and find somebody that can do it, and just go straight to that without running your own RFP and spending 3 weeks, right? 4 weeks, 5 weeks, when you don't have that kind of time.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so
I
yes.
believe we've done that before, we piggybacked off of.
Right, you can piggyback, you can do,
Yeah.
So, but you do have, this right now is your procurement officer, and anything that happens needs to go through whoever your procurement officer is. Okay, so right now, that's your town manager. So I agree with you, you need to follow the procurement process that this town has authorized. Okay, but I don't wanna say it's just this one simple statement, because I don't think that's, right, that can mislead on accident. Okay.
How many other businesses do what you do?
So in the manner in which I do it, I'm not aware of it, okay, but the services that you need could be acquired in other ways if you find them. So I employ city and county managers, okay, but I don't disperse them usually as an interim. And right now, based on what's going on here, nobody that's working with me would really be jumping up and down and be the interim town manager here. Okay, I'm gonna be really honest with you, and I'm being honest and blunt with you on purpose, because as you go with the procurement, of finding somebody and then trying to find another town manager, you're gonna meet that type of resistance. Okay, they're gonna look at what's been going on here, and they're gonna have concerns. So, and I'm dealing with that same challenge. You could find people to help you. There's always people looking for work. Whether or not you can find the depth and the quality of the city managers I have, especially the ones in the county, probably not likely, but again, I only know my business. I don't focus too much on the competition, because I'm not responding to bids. I deal with partners that need work, and then I help them procure the way they need to procure.
So when they're talking about going out to bid, what exactly would be going out to bid?
I don't know.
Okay, I didn't know either, that's what I was asking.
I've had other cities go out to bid on other things, including Temple Terrace, and they hired me to help them write their RFQs and stuff like that, and manage through solicitation. So if you're going out to bid for accounting services, I can certainly run that RFP for your RFQ, right? There's certain things I can run, but here, unless you say exactly what you're looking for, it's really hard to say what it should be.
Okay, but no one can expect me to just say like, yes, let's hire you. And as you said, like, we haven't even discussed fees or any of those things. So like, we can't just hop right into something without knowing all the details.
Agreed, and where I'm hoping we are at the end of tonight's conversation is at least the council come up with a consensus amongst themselves. Here is what the 5 of us can support as a path forward, whatever that is. If the 3 support one thing and 2 support another thing, you may not get any help. Okay, I'm gonna be very clear, because nobody wants to come in knowing if one person changes their mind, they're getting fired, because that's in a public forum, and now I'm thinking about my own personal name, I'm thinking about my company's reputation, right? So I'm thinking about that, and I'm here. Other people are gonna be looking at what's going on here, so where the first step isn't figuring out what the solution is, the first step is figuring out what the 5 of you can agree upon would be a good first step. This is multiple steps. We can't solve all these problems tonight, but the first thing you need to do is get help in here to start you on the path. And there are paths there, because again, your town manager can procure up to a certain dollar amount.
What do you think our very first step should be?
It really depends on where you all land. So right now, I'm hearing objections, but we need to have a conversation about where everybody is first, and then I can give you a recommendation. I have some ideas on what you could do, but I don't wanna just give you 6 different ideas for you to debate. I'd rather kind of feel like where you are so I can guide you in the right direction. Please, Ms. Noble.
So I think where we have kind of stumbled, from when we went to when we changed managerial styles here, we went from a mayor to a town manager. I mean, I'm not aware that I have ever seen was a, you know, I would think there might have been a, you know, some kind of a project plan or something, that all the steps that need to be done, you know, to make that transformation over to a town manager. I've not seen, so consequently, I see where, you know, if you read the Muni Code, there's still things in that where it says, well, go to the, council member over the area, you know, so our Muni Code's not up to date. We really don't have a lot of policies and procedures. We don't have defined, job descriptions, what we need for each, employee. And so there's not, you know, so we're kind of, I tried to be, you know, and call it like a shell before, you know, so with this stuff not being done, just the normal day-to-day operations, I mean, I think it's unfair to bring anybody in and say, oh, by the way, we need you to catch up on 8 years worth of work. In addition, keep us up with the other stuff that, you know, has not been done. There's been talk before about increasing our, you know, increasing our permit. And things just don't seem to go anywhere. So I really think that we need to, and I certainly do not know how to prioritize the first thing. I think it would be the wrong thing to do is just say, oh, we need a town manager, or we need a CPA, and hire those people when we can't even define what they're supposed to be doing. We have a comprehensive plan that needs to be done, and that is the 7-year outlook for the town. So we should be talking to the town and asking them, what is the outlook? Where do they see the town going for our comprehensive plan? You know, or say small town. What does that mean? Do we want more sidewalks? Do we want, you know, people to slow down when they're driving around? You know, how are we gonna try to make the town safer, you know, or what?
Right, and just to bring to everybody what Councilwoman Noble was saying that's resonating with me is there are either things that we feel are problems or somewhere where we want to go, and that's a priority for the city. There's also things that are required by the city. There is compliance that absolutely must be had. And without compliance, bad things happen, okay? And when you have one town manager, the town manager has to do compliance and fix all the problems, okay? The only thing that preserves integrity, job, secures the city is compliance first. And that's why the recommendation of infusion of talent, just to help start addressing some of the problems. Because right now you have enough resources to do a lot of compliance and not a lot of resources to do some of the forward-thinking activities.
Is that something you can help with?
Oh, yes, of course it is. And that's where the challenge isn't, I need, you know, and what happened last time is I know the previous town manager hired a management analyst. I think he was probably trying to get town in here to help with that, understanding the financial constraints. Okay, right now, you are in a slightly different situation financially because of, and here's your opportunity, okay, I want you to think of this as opportunity. ARPA funding is an opportunity because you have some projects that need to be done, but there wasn't a pressing $2.5 million need that's just sitting there that we all agree to. So you do have the ability, again, don't have to hire me, okay? but you have the ability to spend a portion of that to get you from here to here and hiring professionals that know how to do that.
And we don't wanna lose that either, so that's very important that we get professional help.
Correct.
Also, and it's not been discussed with us, I have heard multiple different numbers prior to reading your, I didn't really know it was $2.5 million.
And that's, so really quick, Mr. Rob, is that the exact number?
2.536, I believe.
So just over 2.5 million is your total.
So I certainly don't have a clue, and I'm not gonna read something that thick on how to spend it. I think that we need to have professionals in, and can some of this money be spent to
Yes,
help us?
So let me help with an answer and to let everyone know, and I know you have the presentation in PDF format. I don't know what access everyone else is gonna have to it, but I did put a link in the recommended reading slide. So, final rule on ARPA, SLFR grants, 10 things city leaders need to know. So, they, at the very end, the final ruling, and I know you can't read that, but it's a link up there, okay? The final ruling basically gave cities that received less than $10 million, which the town of Kenneth City is, the ability to claim all of that as lost revenue. So there's mechanics, there's compliance things you need to do to secure that money, but once those compliance things are done, you have that money. So now it becomes okay, now we have to do, right? We have to actually spend that money. And the way to spend the money is to have a plan. Here's how we plan on spending the money, and then managing, right? Getting the performance you want out of that money. That's what's left for the city to do. Okay, so to my understanding, you've done all the compliance items you need to do to secure the money. You've already received half of it. Okay, the other half is going to be coming soon. And now all we need is to secure it and have, here's the plan on how we have to spend it. Can you spend some of that money to help you properly spend the money and come up with ideas on how to spend the money? Yes, that's the whole idea. That money can be spent on a lot of things. Right now, everyone is meeting here, and nobody can watch this meeting on YouTube, but most cities went to YouTube presentation live of their cities during the beginning, and they used money they received from the pandemic for that. So there are things that you can do from a technology standpoint, cybersecurity standpoint, transfer everything to the cloud standpoint. There's a lot of things you can do to bring your city forward. And again, the challenge is saying, okay, town manager, whoever's in the chair, do all this stuff. Through who? It's really, really hard. The town manager can do the town manager's job, 1 or 2 strategic initiatives, that's it. Otherwise, you need resources to delegate to, and quite frankly, all the resources to delegate to have full-time jobs. I know you didn't talk about it last time, but you're gonna have to come back to it. The town clerk job, as it's written in the code, doesn't follow what a typical town clerk does. I know there's a history why it's that way here. Okay, I'm not saying it's wrong. I understand changing the charter is a challenge. Okay? It's also a challenge to hire for a job that nobody else has in the country. So that's what's currently defined. So there are things that, again, all over the place, all these different things, one person, 1 or 2 strategic initiatives every 6 months. That's about the expectation of the town manager, and you need other resources for the rest, and you have maybe a dozen strategic initiatives you need. I don't see how you're gonna dig out of the hole without bringing in people to help. That's my professional opinion. You don't have to do it, but I don't see things getting better without it.
So moving forward, if we all came together and decided to hire you, can you put a package together for us to get something started to help us move forward?
So the answer is yes. The how is a little more nuanced question. Because there are a few people on my team that I would like to bring in, we would need to have some sort of, here is the short-term agreement. Let's give ourselves a budget up to X dollar amount to get from not having a plan to having a plan and know how much it's gonna cost. I already told you I invested 25 hours here. If you say, hey, how about make a proposal for us? I can't spend another 25 hours. I do have other clients to service. And I can't pay other people when I don't know I'm gonna be able to pay them from what's coming in. So short term, if you're looking for my help, yes, I could. We could say, here's a budget, spend this amount of time talking with our current staff talking with each one of us individually, that's what I would recommend at a bare minimum. Everyone has to agree to have a conversation that's on council, has to agree to it and be willing to participate. We need access to your staff and maybe even some of your contractors to be able to tell you where you are. The engineer is really important. The accountant is really important. Okay, there are answers to all of those things, but without having the right people in the room with the right people, it's really hard. This was just, most of this was a guess, because again, I didn't have access to anybody.
So would this basically be a, I guess I'm asking, would your suggestion be that the town really needs a strategic plan of all the things that, you know, so you can compile the things that haven't been done, that need to be done to bring us up to compliance and to bring our, there's just a lot of things.
Yeah, I wouldn't label it a strategic plan only because strategic plan is a defined word that means a lot of things in other places, and then that could lead to some, how come you didn't give us this, it's in a strategic plan? But you do need something. You need a transition overview, a transition plan, something. We can come up with a creative name, but yes, you do need how to get from here to here. And right now, the first step is really understanding exactly where we are. And we have a lot of ideas, but it's a lot of turning in the stomach. Yeah. I'm turning in the stomach right now. I can't imagine it's comfortable for any of you sitting up there knowing this is where we are. But we really need to define this in a way that we can present. Here is where we are up here. We said this may be a problem. Here's the investigative analysis we did, right? On the revenue side, that could be one person, 40 hours. I don't know, right? What will we do? We look at all your revenue buckets, we look at all the comparable cities around. I have two people that work in cities here, so they have a pretty good starting point. And then we come back saying, here's where you are, here's where the other towns are, here's our recommendations. And then you can decide what you want based on those recommendations. So could we do that? Yes, that's just revenue. The other ones that we outlined as potential items to kind of start with is, you pick, is it, hey, we need accounting services, help us run an RFQ, because last time we did it, let's be fair, last time we did it, you were meeting weekly without a town manager. Very tough situation, we don't have a procurement officer running a procurement. So this time, could we come in and help you run that procurement? Sure. What are we looking for? What's the goal? Having conversations with different people that have experience hiring this out? Yes, we can help with that. That could be something else, but we need an agreement on, let's start here. You understand?
Yeah, so what comes first though? Does it come first to understand what needs updating in the town? So if we're going by the muni code, as we've said, that what's in there for the town clerk is, well, it's outdated. It's never been updated, basically. And so, I mean, I can look in places in the muni code where it still says to, refer to the council member in charge of that. So that needs updating, and so do we need to, so I'm asking what comes first? Do we need to look at updating that and getting our job descriptions in line so we actually know what we need to hire for?
So,
Can I just speak to
please,
that for a
go
moment?
ahead.
You're speaking about the code, and that is my charge here. I agree with you that forgive me, I'll refrain from dad voice and just use the mic. In as much as you're speaking about your code being misaligned with your charter, that is an accurate statement. A few years ago, my office was authorized to engage in a code rewrite. I began that process, and I have circulated drafts. In some cases, we got to a first reading, and between first reading and second reading, things derailed. No pun intended, we took a strong detour through chapter 54 for about 2 years, and every other ordinance seemed to get backburnered. I've provided drafts of several ordinances to bring that in alignment. My advice to you in a broader sense, when you're talking about the order of operations, updating your code takes a series of ordinances that are going to be read on first and second reading with publications and notices and advertisements. And to overhaul that, we've had enough trouble just getting, for example, chapter 54 in place to say that you're going to bring your entire code into alignment in a timely fashion that will allow you to also recruit a new manager with a vacancy 60 days away. I can tell you that is impossibility. I told the manager or the mayor before the meeting, I don't like to speak in absolutes. I can absolutely tell you that I cannot get this body to overhaul your entire code in time for you to timely recruit a manager. I think you've well established you're at a mission critical with your staffing, and so I'm not opining on what your order of operations should be, but I will tell you that if the first one is updating the code, I don't think that you're going to get where you need to get on the timeline you need to get there.
Well, thank you, I'm just kind of asking about,
It's a fair question.
priorities.
It's a fair question, and I think your attorney did a really good job explaining it, and that's where I do think the first step is some sort of arrangement with somebody to help you get there. And again, right now your town manager just already resigned, so I would say if you have somebody that you're all willing to work with, each 5 of you need to say, based on where I am, here's what the priorities are. So somebody could say, all right, I spoke to the 5 of you, and I think this is a priority list that you're gonna agree with, because they spoke to all 5 of you independently. Okay, because it's gonna be really hard to facilitate that session without a lot of investment. Then I think you can have somebody help you, here's where we are, can we get on a path, and then we can discuss changing priorities. It is important. I don't think that the code is gonna be number 1, but it's something you need to address sooner rather than later.
I would say a transitional plan would be important, and procurement help or strategy would be number 1 and 2 for me.
What if we don't do anything?
It's a good question, and it's an option. Okay, let's be fair, it's an option.
Where are we headed if we don't do the things that you
You've lived that
suggested?
before, okay, so you've lived it before, you have a town manager that's here for 60 days minus a week now, right, left. And you have an accountant that's here for the duration there, okay? You can time out and then address it then. It's an option. I'm a change agent, so I have a hard time with do nothing option, but do nothing is an option. I can't say what all the consequences will be, but a lot of what you're dealing with last year, you'll be dealing with this year, only probably significantly
Worse. Okay.
If you actually make the choice to go down the do nothing path, that communicates something, of course it does, so it's a pretty big risk.
So the first thing we would really need to do as a council would be to decide that we need help. Is that not correct?
Or at least agree upon, I think, yes, so fundamentally you need to agree on what that help looks like. And I'm not so sure you're all on the same page where that is, and that's probably what the discussion needs to be tonight. What kind of help do we need, and how do we get there?
My suggestion is to listen to you. Okay, you're the man who knows what's going on. You have experience in this. And I would just as soon believe what you were telling me. This is counsel, this is what you need to do next. And I don't know if anybody up here can actually say, I don't agree with that, we need to go do this or that or the other, you know, I don't know where they'd be coming from, is what I don't understand.
I understand what you're saying, and I respect what you're saying. However, I honestly don't think 5 people up here will say that exact statement. So what we need to be at is at a place where, for me to choose to actually participate. Mm-hmm. So again, it's a choice. I would like to know that all 5 are in agreement on a path forward. And if we can't get there, there is no path forward. Correct. At least not with me, okay? So you have a path forward, you have to go forward. You don't have a choice. You're all elected, you can't just walk away. I can drive away tonight and not come back. So, and I'm not saying that as a threat, I'm saying I want to help, but I can only help if I have 5 people willing to work with me. And if I don't, then you need to find somebody else.
Are you willing, Bonnie?
Well, Barbara, Megan, do you have any thoughts about a transition plan and how we would go about doing that?
No, but I know in the beginning, we hired a town manager to get us a plan from here to here. We gave him less than 5 months to do whatever he needed to do as he came in working without any documents, any you're saying that there were no policies and procedures. He did put some in place, but he went from here to here by trying to add all of that, and with everyone on this council giving him separate directives, he couldn't even accomplish what he needed to do, because everyone went in there telling him to do this or that or this. So you better look at what you're gonna get, Rob Duncan, when you take on this council, with everyone telling you what direction they wanna go, when it's not a consensus
Well,
of five
that's not
people.
true, because I've never went in there once and said anything to him, so.
Well, there were people that went in there,
But
I'm
don't-
not gonna say
don't
who
say it's
did
everybody
what,
then, because
but
I've
there
never
were
once
people that
did
went
that.
in there giving him different directions, and every time he went somewhere,
So for everybody, please, if you don't mind, let me, I agree with what Councilwoman just said. I agree. I think there needs to be a little bit of a, how do we come together? Now, that doesn't mean that there should be individual conversations with each one of you with your town manager. Of course there should be, right? And the town manager needs to have the right dialogue back. And I know this town manager made an effort to do it, okay? So going forward, it still needs to continue. What I am saying is, no matter who's in the chair, without the proper resources to help you with some of these things, you're gonna end up with the same result. Nobody can be in the chair without the resources and get you where you need to go. So I agree with you, but what I'm saying is, it was an untenable situation to begin with, and the only way through it is an influx of resources, but short term. You can't afford long-term resources. You can't, okay? Until somebody finds a way so you can afford more, okay? You can, okay? But you can't not do the things you need to do, because then you're never gonna find a way to be sustainable. There needs to be a financial sustainability path here, and right now, you don't feel comfortable as it's at. Doesn't matter what I think, I know you don't feel comfortable up there. That's what I've heard from the DSRA. So there does need to be help in place. So what you're saying is correct, it's just whether or not this town manager stays, put another town manager in place, nobody's gonna be able to fix that situation without that short-term infusion of talent to get you there. And again, what I'm advising is you have the ARPA funds, they're not all of them dedicated yet, that's a path, okay? It's a path to use some of it, allocate some of it. Think about your future and say, I'm willing to spend, you could say, I'm willing to spend $1 million on it. Okay, you wouldn't give me $1 million, I can't think of $1 million worth of work I could ever possibly do here, okay? But you can decide how much of a priority it is and how much you're willing to budget of those funds to get you there. It's at your disposal right now, because you haven't made the decision on what it's for.
So in order for you to help us, you need us to, all five of us say, we would like your help, sir.
You don't have to say, sir, okay? Hey, I have concerns, however, I'm willing to participate, I'm willing to play ball, pick a time path. For the next 2 months, come in, let's see what you can do, and I'm willing to play ball, that's fine. But I'm gonna ask for a little integrity here, because if it's not it, that's fine too. I just assume you find somebody you can always help. I don't know, we have a history here, and if somebody thinks that history is no good, that's fine. I'm not gonna tell someone they're not entitled to their opinion. It all comes down to trust, and the trust has to go both ways. If there isn't trust for me, it's not a good relationship, and if I don't have trust for you, it's not a good relationship. And there's a 5 of you, so if I hold to a certain standard, it has to be all 5. It really does. I normally work with a city manager or a county manager, and I have one person, I know if they trust me or not. Okay, so I'm gonna treat you all as one body, and if 3 of you vote for it, 2 vote against it, that's not trust to me, and that's right, that's not what the company's gonna do.
Then what?
I just work on other clients. That's for you
Well, no,
guys to
I
figure
mean,
out.
What would happen here if we don't get some help and start heading in the right direction?
Honestly, right now, what you have at your disposal, if you're looking to procure other services, is to work with your procurement officer, and that's your current town manager. And then you have to decide on what direction you want to give while he's still here, and then you can give it. You also have an attorney here that's at your disposal, and that seems to be what your options are. What you decide to do with that, that's up to you, but that's your path. You do have options. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, you have no option, you have to, no way. I'm not holding you over the fire.
Smart option.
But with Pete leaving and his contract coming to an end, would it be beneficial for us to use you for help with procurement, or do we?
It would be beneficial for you to use somebody,
just to clarify, you said before that you wouldn't help with the manager executive search, correct? That's why you recommended this company?
Yeah, I don't do executive search. that's
Okay,
correct.
right. So, I mean, I feel like we're kind of at a standstill here, so I feel like in order to get the ball rolling,
Please.
you know, as Imagine That just said, as Rob just said, his company will not help us hire a new town manager. So we talk about, yes, we need to have some kind of resources to assist the town manager, especially the current one while he's moving out. But we do also need to hire a new town manager. So I would like to say, how about we try to piggyback off of one of these contracts? Let's reach out and see what services these companies were offering. You know, as he said, Temple Terrace went with the most expensive one because that's what fit best for their town. But maybe one of those other.
But that's just for the town.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying just to get us started, everybody kept talking about where should we start?
We gotta look even further.
But how do we define-
We got an attorney, we got.
I mean, has our opinions changed over the past 6 months? Because if you go through our package, our opinions are even included right here, everything that we wanted in a town manager. I'm just curious, have we changed our opinions that much in the past 6 months?
How do we know what to define the town manager at in his or her roles and responsibilities, knowing that there is a great deal of work to do? Are we going to outsource some of that work, to get it caught up? Are we going, I don't think we're at a point where we can go and hire a town manager currently.
So it's a good point, but Councilwoman Zemitis is correct. If you don't do anything, and you don't have somebody here that can take over, you're gonna be in a real bad spot. A recruitment takes 4 to 6 months. So if you hire somebody in 2 weeks, best case scenario, you hire someone in 2 weeks, you're looking at 2 weeks plus 4 to 6 months before somebody else is formally sitting in the chair. And that would require you getting applicants that you want, which means you have to have other serious conversations on what that's gonna take. Okay, you presented a slide before for a reason, okay, because I know 2 people that could be candidates in the county. And I know they were each making 50% more than your current manager. So they will not apply. And most people that, are qualified candidates won't apply for that pay. So, yes, you do need to start, and you do need expert help to come in here and help you through the conversation, and maybe revisit some of those discussions.
If I may, just to, again, provide, thank you, Rob, sorry.
Please.
If I may, to again provide you both context and a little more information as my firm does this across the county and in Manatee County. Mr. Duncan's correct, it takes several months. We'll just use ourselves as an example. We began recruiting roughly April 1st of last year, and it was August 22nd or 3rd when it was Manager Cavalli's first day. I think it was August 11th when we voted him in. And while we acquired an interim manager much faster than that, that was really a function of happenstance. When we interviewed Ms. Ladner and the other candidate whose name is escaping me at this moment, Ms. Ladner came in the day of the interview and we got her resume and the other person, both those people found jobs quickly. I would just tell you that the clock is ticking on Pete's tenure here, with all respect to you. I don't mean to talk about you so you're not next to me. The clock is ticking on his tenure. One way or the other, somebody is going to have to be in that seat. Now, by virtue of actions taken by this body at another meeting, your de facto manager, in the absence of Manager Cavalli, is your chief of police. Your chief of police has a department to run. At the risk of speaking for you, Chief, I don't think he has any interest nor respectfully the ability to fully run your town and create his department budget, your town budget, and all the other things that go into that. And I don't think it's your intention to ask that.
No.
And so with that in mind, I appreciate the need to vision. And so let me tell you, because the proposal on the table for next steps right now by at least Councilmember Zemitis is an ask of this body: are you interested in seeing what our procurement opportunities are for a recruitment firm? A recruitment firm helps you establish precisely that. And that process may be expedited by the fact that you've done this within the last year, and here's everything we did last year. Most recruiters come in and say, here's what you did 8 years ago, what do you want to change? You have the year ago, but that doesn't mean you're bound by that. You can change that, whether it's the compensation amount, the responsibilities, but they're part of that dialogue with you, and just like Pam Brancacho did, they would, the senior advisor with FLC, they would say, what are your existing priorities? What compensation are you looking for? What are the terms you're looking for? And they'll go out there and they will hit the pavement and go through their, to use an outdated reference, Rolodex of candidates and work that for you. So they can help you establish that visioning and priorities if that's what you're going for. And I'm not saying that as a form of advocacy. I'm providing you the context so you can make the decision. So if you go with a recruitment firm, they don't just say, well, give us the ad and we'll run it. They ask you, what is it that you're looking for? Here's my market data on where you are and how do you want to reconcile these two, and let's get that out. So that's what that might look like.
Rob, if we can get you to help us, are you under contract of some sort?
Currently, I'm not under contract with the town of Kenneth.
No, I mean, if we say the 5 of us agree that we need your help, are you under contract with us, or are you just,
No.
no?
So
So in other words, if you say you can help us and we all agree and you start to help us and all of a sudden we realize Rob doesn't know what the heck he's talking about, we could just get rid of you. Is that not correct?
So right now, what I would say is if you wanted to have some sort of formal agreement, the 5 of you would need to give direction to your procurement officer who is sitting in the room. I keep talking about Mr. Cavalli as if he's not here. I don't mean to, but it's really hard. You don't want to have to engage in this conversation. I recognize how hard it is to sit there. So in order to move forward with either one of these, and I think Councilwoman Zemaitis is correct, figuring out what we're going to do for the city manager is a paramount performance, because saying, okay, you're the answer, or if I go away, now what you got? You got nothing, okay? So you can't just do that. That's not appropriate. I wouldn't recommend that for your town. Okay?
I got you.
However, these are the 2 things that I feel are necessary. Now, is it possible to do the first one, say, you help us with the second one? Yes, of course. So, but these are 2 things that absolutely must be the priority in my mind. That's why I try to make this as simple as possible.
Is time of essence on this too?
I believe so, but again, it's really hard, all right? I'm trained in sales, and I'm not gonna be the one saying, if you don't make this decision, all these bad things are gonna happen. I don't do scare tactics, okay? You do have options, you do have paths forward, and I'm not gonna be the one sitting here trying to scare you. It's scary enough.
I think we need to look at maybe both, look for the next town manager, but also get some help from him and get some direction. Working side by side to help come up with a plan, so again, it's not all put on the town manager and we're not moving
Especially
forward.
new town manager.
Yeah.
Can we ask questions now? How
No.
much are we willing to,
So
how much are we willing to,
right, so-
to help us find a town manager, so why
Well, wait a
would we
minute, how much,
recommend that?
well, we don't have to, but are we willing to go up in our pay for a town manager or something?
We're gonna have to.
Yeah.
Right, and probably appropriate to hold that discussion for another time. For everyone sitting here, right now, we're just having a discussion of ideas, and they are not going, and I'm not gonna accept any, will you do this, okay? Because if they come to we're interested in a certain thing, then I think they need to have their say, come to an agreement, and then you probably want to turn and ask for opinions is what I'm gonna recommend. You're not required, but it's what I'm gonna recommend, and the attorney will opine, okay? So, right now, I feel rumblings here, and what the mayor said before, I'd like to hold to. Let's not start yelling out, nothing's gonna happen, okay? Nothing can happen without everyone here having a say anyway, okay? So that's the most important thing. There's potentially a formal meeting afterwards where they could make formal actions, this isn't it. So, right, I feel the tension here, okay, but trust me, there's a process here, and they're still following it, and if I didn't cover all that, please.
So Megan, do you wanna go out to all of, 1, 2, 3, 4, all 5 of these people?
I mean, I just want clarification, did they present like something to,
So
I see the invitation to bid, not a request for proposal, so.
they use an invitation to bid, which is a form of procurement processes. An analysis would definitely have to be done. No, I cannot tell you having not looked at Temple Terrace's process, that we could piggyback. But if there is the opportunity to piggyback, what that would look like is we would take their selected candidates, so we would not be going all 5. We would say they picked Colin Benzinger, and Colin Benzinger is a market leader in this area. You'll find him having worked, his firm having worked from, Key West to Tallahassee. But we would select them. There are very strict guidelines on what a piggybacked contract can and can't be. You may recall in the March meeting, or rather the April meeting, the first April regular meeting, we had an Acela contract that was a piggybacked contract. And a lot of that negotiation, if you wish to call it that, a lot of the back and forth between that contractor and the town was making sure that our terms were within the scope of permissible piggybacking. When you piggyback off a contract, you have to use those terms. So if they agree to pay $29,000 for 5 hours of work, we can't say, can we get $29,000 for 20 hours of work?
Okay.
That's not how, we have to really work within the precise scope, and we also have to look at the scope of what they were asked to do and make sure that scope aligns with what you would need to do, speaking to scopes of services. And so it's a very narrow process. It may present us with an opportunity. That analysis has not been done yet. But alternatively, if you were wanting to see all comers and see 5 different looks, you would have to have your own invitation to bid or request for proposals as appropriate, and my office would do that analysis and get something out. That's what that would look like.
And how long?
How long? I mean, well, obviously it would be a priority to get something together sooner than later, and we would have to have a public meeting where this body would consider the terms of the RFP to go out, probably, because given where you are administratively, you don't need to do that for every RFP, but for this one you may need to.
Okay.
But we, then it becomes, usually you want to run an RFP for roughly at least 3 weeks, so it gives people both time to see it, time for the market to learn about it, and time for people to meaningfully and substantively respond. Those recruitment firms move pretty quickly by design, given their industry. They've got stuff canned, and they're usually ready to go pretty quickly, but you'd still be looking at a 5-week lead time before, 4 to 5 week lead time from today before you've said, and we pick this firm to help us recruit a manager. That puts you about a little more than halfway into his process.
Is that something you would do, Rob?
He said no. He said numerous times he will not help at the hiring.
So I won't do the executive search, okay? The attorney will need to opine on your solicitation mechanism. You don't necessarily need to have the attorney draft a document. Could we take a Temple Terrace invitation to bid and modify that for your purposes? Sure. And then your attorney would need to say, yes, this is okay based on the rules here, right? Because again, you need your attorney to make sure you're following your procurement rules. That's why you have your attorney. Could other people potentially help you run an invitation to bid, RFP, right, RFQ, besides having only the attorney do it? Yes, right, there are options there. And again, I only say that because I know everyone's worried about rate, and I know the attorney is the highest paid staffer here. So the attorney needs to make sure it's done right, but the attorney doesn't necessarily need to do all the work. So there are options, okay? And I'm not saying you should do it one way or another, I'm just saying you have options at your disposal, including asking your town manager to call the current city manager in Temple Terrace, say, could you please give us these documents? Because he will. As a matter of fact, Dr. Spinner, I talked to him on the way over here, he said to say hello to him.
But you could also provide us an interim town manager in between this process, because there's obviously gonna be a void or time in between when he leaves and when we can hire somebody.
It's possible, okay? It's in the realm of possibility based on the staff I have.
But I thought you said before that wasn't likely.
It's a concern, okay? If it's a tonight answer, it's a concern. If we can get someplace in the next 2 months, it could be a different answer. Again, we have to be fair. Somebody's gonna have to wanna sit there, and somebody's gonna wanna get properly compensated to sit there. And right now, those are 2 significant challenges that we haven't come up with a solution for. Okay, I'm not saying you have to do that right now, I'm just saying that's what you're facing.
What do we need to do right now, Rob?
So do we want to run this concurrently?
So we also gotta consider, we have the $2.5 million federal dollars that needs to be, we need to make sure we don't lose those.
Yeah, you have nowhere to work.
So, but if,
You won't, right, so right now, you're not at risk of losing the $2.5 million, okay?
all right, well,
We'll make sure we're clear, don't get too worried. Your town manager has done his job, your accountant has done their job, your attorney has done their job, you're not at risk of losing the $2.5 million, okay?
So to get this rocking and rolling, what do we need to do next?
I think, right, I really think what you need to do is decide, are these the first two things we want to work on, or is it something else? Or do you want to just work on one, okay? And then, if you decide and come to that, what does it look like for this one, what does it look like for that one?
Multiple tasking.
Yes. So again, if you decide to bring in an executive search firm to start the process of getting a permanent manager, that's not necessarily a bad idea. As a matter of fact, I've put it up here for reasons. That's why I recommend you can ask your town attorney to work with your town manager to work on that process and reach out to places that have done it. Yeah, I can tell you right now, town of Bel Air asked City of Temple Terrace for the documents because they're hiring a town manager. Okay, so this is not outside the ordinary, and they may do their own. According to your policies, whether or not you could just ask for 3 proposals from those 3, I don't know, right? So you have options here. I would say direct them, your staff, if that's an option you want. I would try to get everyone on board with that and then do that path. That's one. Yes, we can help you, and if we're employed, will we help weigh in? Sure, but you don't need us to start that process. You have people here that can.
Okay.
So Megan, do you think that we should run these concurrently then? Since you brought up, going out to a search firm and getting a search firm, but, I mean, it's clear to me that we don't have enough people to do everything, and, also get some help to get some of these things done, so we run these 2 things concurrently.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree we're gonna need help, because it's just, we've gone through all the timetables, it's an impossibility for us to accomplish, like, the important things as our budget with the transition and the hiring meetings we're gonna have, and then if we don't get on it though, we may not even have someone here, and yes, if we were to hire, imagine that, or some other company, they would help facilitate, but it is gonna be difficult, so we are gonna need to multitask, but again, I'm not saying I'm not interested, I'm saying I feel like it's logical. You can't just get me to say, yes, I want your company's help when I have no idea what you're gonna cost us. There's just I just feel like that should be common.
Sure, so.
Everyone should feel that way.
Right.
We can't just say like, yes, we want your help when we have no idea.
Absolutely right, nobody asked the question. So the standard hourly rate, so Steve right now is the interim town manager, interim city manager in the City of Temple Terrace, okay? Public contract, his rate is $39.50 a week. Okay? That's the rate per week of an acting city manager. Okay, we also provided for them short-term additional services because during the transition, they had a problem over there. They had somebody get arrested. They fired their city manager. At the moment's notice, Steve was available, and we also provided another resource. That was 18 hours at $19.50 a week. Okay. Those rates are below what the hourly rate is. If it's just, hey, come in here on an hourly rate based on what we need, that is also in that contract is $125 an hour. Okay, that's the standard rate. I actually raised the rate to $150 this year, right? But right now, I'm still offering current clients $125. Your past client, I'll still honor. Okay, so if it's, hey, can you come in and work with the town manager tomorrow? There's a vehicle to get you there, but that rate is $125 an hour until we have some sort of negotiated, here's the contract, here's the price. I'd like to have, here's what is expected of you, and here's what we're paying for that expectation. Normally, I spend time putting that together after having the interview. I've already invested 25 hours and kind of beyond what I normally put into a client before getting a contract, right?
I think something that warrants stating at this point in the discussion, when you talk about procuring professional services, I'm going to use a term that's been used a lot lately in this community, which is your scope of services. You're going to need to know what you're asking somebody to do, whether that's Imagine That or somebody else. And certainly if you're going to get informed applications, candidates for any one of those services, whether it's, Imagine That, I don't know your full roster, but if they have professionals who are prepared to provide municipal accounting services, the ask for municipal accounting services is different than the ask for assistant manager services. And you need to know what you're asking them to do, also to know what the market offers you. And so up on the slide right now, for those who might have trouble reading it, the proposed next actions are procure resources to assist the town manager and procure an executive search firm. That's the recommended next steps. One of those questions is procuring an executive search firm. That's very clear, established. We know what we're saying. Help us find somebody, full stop. The second one, as far as what those resources to assist the town manager are, your town manager, I know you guys know me well enough by now, I always come up with an analogy. Your town manager needs a toolbox to keep with us. They need a screwdriver, a wrench, a hammer. You need to decide which tools are priorities. And then say, you can't say, we need somebody who can just bring us a toolbox, because the market can't respond to that. The market, for procurement purposes, needs to know what you're asking for. They need to know the position players. We need a shortstop and a second baseman. You can't say we need baseball players. And so that's, as you move through that, and you don't need to decide that right this moment. We're having a workshop, and for the benefit of the public, with workshops versus official meetings, the difference is they can't decide anything right now, which is what he was sort of alluding to. They can't say, and this is what's gonna happen, wrap the gavel, it's done. Even if they say our general direction is, we think we want to move in the direction of procuring an executive search firm at the meeting in about a half hour, or whatever that is, at the very next meeting, I will confirm that that is the direction of the body, and we would go through that process. So just, whether you ponder that now, or you ponder that in the next meeting, as you talk about getting resources, you're going to need to come to some kind of agreement on what the priorities are in those resources, so that so people like Rob are in a position to say, yeah, I can or I cannot do that for you.
So I guess that goes back to my point, Rob, when you were saying that you would have somebody come in and talk to the town, the people that are working there now, and all 5 of us, and put together a document. Would that contain basically, so you need a financial person, and the scope of work would be A, B, and C? Is that what you're suggesting? Or
Potentially, but the procurement, so there needs to be a more detailed discussion on what the procurement limitations are. In some procurement, if you pay somebody to help you write a solicitation, and then you do a solicitation, that person's gonna be prohibited from responding. Okay, so we don't want to accidentally walk you down a path where I help you get an RFP out there, nobody is qualified to respond except for us, but we're not allowed to respond. Okay, so that doesn't help you. We don't want to go down a path where we aren't helping. Okay, so we have to be really careful on the prescribed path. So ideally that's where we'd be, but what's allowed in the business world and what's allowed in the government sector, there's different rules here. Okay,
because I think that's our problem, is we cannot, I certainly can't define the scope of work for the people that we need, so how do we do an RFP? That's the dilemma.
Correct. And I would suggest that an RFP is not the right answer. Okay, so the first thing becomes, yes, we agree we need an infusion of talent, and these are the things that are kind of most important. Okay, whatever it is. Then you can either do an invitation to bid or do something saying, here's the things that are important, and do it that way, or you could say, okay, these are the things that are important, can you just do this up into a certain dollar amount, and then decide. And either one of those are options to you. I prefer you to just say, here's a budget, can you just spend up to here and get us someplace where we can have a more educated discussion? That's what I prefer. You can see the work product. Yes, before we put some real actionable items, if we spend time with your staff, with each of you, to get where we need to be. But again, you need a path first of general broad scope. Okay, let's start here, here, and here. Start helping us with the budget stuff, because you never want to look at revenues, you never want to look at expenses. If they ask any questions on the executive search, help out with that, and then help out with, accounting services and getting that procured for it. Something like that. You can, and I'm not saying those should be your priorities, I'm just trying to go off of what I heard a little bit of. You can pick some priorities, pick a budget, say, can you do in that budget, and I can tell you yay or nay, type of thing. We could have that discussion, or you could say, all these things, start working, and give us full report on what you're doing. We want check-ins every week, and we'll decide if we want to stop or go forward. It's a challenge. It's a real challenge. And again, anything that you're asking for, that's would need to be, here's what your thought is, and you're giving that information to your town manager, and your town manager is the one procuring this, right? Again, you don't have the ability right now to directly procure services from Imagine That Performance. You're at your disposal. You can hire and fire a town manager. You have a town manager. This is your procurement vehicle right here. So I want to make sure I'm really clear, and not going to put words into his mouth and make him have to make a decision here. He's in a really bad spot, but he needs a little bit of a consensus from you in a direction to go forward.
For you to go forward, is that what you said?
No, for you, the town, to go forward. He needs direction from you so that he can still lead the town forward. He's your town manager. I'm giving you, information, but I'm not an employee of the city, and you can't directly hire me. All you can do is give him direction based on what you believe is there, and then he can do his job trying to procure whatever it is he needs to procure. And get the responses back from the people he reaches out to. That's your process. That's your government. That's what you have at your disposal right now.
Well, did I just hear you say you want us to give you a dollar amount and say you work to this budget and when that money's gone, you stop?
No,
Is that what you said?
what I'm suggesting is if you want to give guidance of, we need to get someplace further than we are right now, and you want to give your town manager the head nod, yes, we would like you to do what you can under your authority as town manager to procure some services to help us get someplace next week, you could give him that direction. It's in your authority to give him direction to spend up to what it is he can spend in his position. That's all I'm saying. And whatever that is, that recommendation is, that's up to you as a council, as a body, to make that recommendation.
Are you willing to do so, Pete?
Oh, come on, Mayor, you know I would.
Okay.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay. Then, why wouldn't we?
Why wouldn't we ask, nothing, not against you or what you've offered us, but why would we just settle for what you've asked us without getting someone else in here to give us something? It'd be like me putting a roof on my house and taking this guy because he was giving me $20,000. I don't know what the other guy would offer me for whatever the dollars are without having somebody look.
Absolutely right. Last time, when we first came here, Ms. Latner reached out, asked me for a proposal, and she reached out to other firms for a proposal, and they all declined. Okay, so I'm not saying you should just say, go to work with me. No, you have to answer to the citizens, and they're probably gonna want you to give your manager direction to look at options. I'm not saying you shouldn't look at options. I would request you don't just sit there and hand over all my work product to somebody for free, but it's at your disposal. You can do what you want. This is a public document. I recognize it's public when I put it out there.
So if we choose to look at somebody else just to see what options they have, does that mean if we go back and choose you, you're gonna up your price more than $125 an hour?
No.
That's still gonna stay the same price?
No, I'm pretty straightforward with what I say. I'm not here to play any games. That's the rate. And that's the rate because the employees that I would bring on board are city managers in Pinellas County making a certain rate. That's the only way I can afford to pay them. I put the math up there for a reason. You can see the cost is 110 plus an hour. That's the cost. You want to figure out what my operating margin is, you're going to figure it out pretty quick.
Can we ask a question?
We ask questions? Get done with this.
Randy? Public forum is over.
But we didn't know what we were gonna say, so.
Well, of course, hold on, yeah, so you're right, so hold on, don't worry, you'll be able to.
We all have to agree that we would like to keep
I'd like to say something on a positive note.
stay here to help us with procurement and.
So we have another meeting for that.
We have like 3 questions on the floor. There are 3 questions on the floor. The first is the public has asked you whether they can be heard on the matter. That's ultimately a decision of the presiding officer at this stage because you're in a workshop, no official acts are taken. By law, under 286.014 or 114, the public must be heard within reasonable proximity to an official act being taken. Official acts won't take place here. That's not to say you can't open to it. I'm telling you what the baseline legal requirement is. The public desires to be heard. If they're not heard here, there's certainly a moment in the next meeting where they would have to be heard before any kind of official acts are taken. To answer Member Cummings' question about, do we have to give Pete direction right here, right now? I would suggest you take this discussion, remain mindful of it, and use that in the next meeting to say, because there is an agenda item on, I believe, if memory serves, on the agenda for the manager search, transition, and otherwise. And so that would be the more appropriate forum. You can here establish, like, generally where is everybody's head at, but as far as official acts direction, I would suggest, especially since we have a meeting to immediately follow this one, that you just do it then. As far as the public's appeal, that's ultimately the presiding officer's decision.
Next meeting.
So, if I may, ask everybody what they think. If everyone would like to hear what the people have to say, now is an okay time. You don't have to, but if everyone wants to hear it, that's fine. If you have an idea where you want to go and then make a recommendation and pass their opinion after, you can do that too. But I would ask everybody up here what they think.
Okay. Bonnie? No. Go ahead. Just take one at a time. Come up with the
As a
thing.
reminder,
You have 3 minutes.
please remember to fill out a speaker card. Your comments are public record and I need to collect your information. There are extra speaker cards and pens on the back table.
Ready? Tim Shelby, 4702 Lake Charles Drive, Kenneth City. I've been a resident, well, next month it'll be 40 years. I worked 8 years at Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners Procurement Department and 12 years for International Airport Procurement Department. So, been retired 2 years now. My recommendation would be to do 2 procurements. One to procure your assistant town manager, and the second procurement is to procure your executive search firm. Immediately, have your town manager look to see if he could piggyback off another contract or doing their own RFP program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeff Honest. I'm at 4494 61st Lane North, Kansas City, Florida. First off, I'd just like to say thank you for coming out tonight. I had a little difference when you first came here because I didn't understand why you were doing here, but I'm glad you came. Okay. Second off, I think there's a very serious and simple way to take care of this. Number one, our town manager has a contract, which we don't have to give him a raise right now because he already signed that contract, and I believe that he would stay if the council could work together with him. He knows what's going on in this town, he has the education, and if all 5 of you are gonna agree to work together and let him do his job and get him help so we go through this matter, it wouldn't cost our town a ton of money. I believe that if the 5 of you can get together and you ask the town manager to stay, you would stay. Because he's doing a heck of a good job, he's only been here 5 months, he's done a lot of things, and he knows what's going on with our budget. And I think the people in this town think he's doing a good job from the people that I've talked to. And I don't see where we need to go out and look for one and spend all that extra money finding a new town manager and going through all this when we should say, hey, he's got a contract. You don't need to raise it. Give him a raise right now. Let him do his job, get him help, and let's get this town back on its feet. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll do that now. So this is Midas again, just rolling from the street court. I appreciate the presentation, even though I asked a question as to why you were here, and I know that Imagine that was here before, and I think everybody was impressed with their services, albeit they were very expensive. And I think that anyone who's paying attention to the numbers is worried about that. The budget uses the reserves to balance. Good job on not spending them, though. The manager is doing a very good job of that. But we can't keep going the way we are. And I think what I'm hearing from some people, I feel like, is fear. Is you know, where do we go? We don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. And I think the first, in my opinion, the first thing to do is to get a search firm, and let's get the search going. If you guys can't agree to get along and agree and he needs to go his own way, then we need to get that search started. As for what resources the town manager needs, I think you're leaving out the most important person in the room and asking what resources would benefit him. You know, our accountant resigned, our financial person, well then let's put out a bid or an invitation or something to get a new accountant. I don't know that we need another big think tank, no offense, right now. We don't need it right now. If we get to the point where we haven't hired a new manager and now we don't know what to do and yes, then maybe we need them. But I think maybe putting the cart before the horse, like out of fear. So I think if you just slow down, start the most important search first, and then have a discussion as to what we really need. And I mean, instead of just saying like, well, what do we need to get you and what do we need to get you and what do we need to do from you? It's like so redundant, it's a little bit obvious. So I would just recommend get started with the most important thing first.
Ellen Dalva, 4726 58th Street North. Jeff, you got here before me. I can't believe the council cannot agree that we have a manager who has done nothing but good things in 5 months in this town. I would like to see you guys get together, get down on your hands and knees, and beg Pete to rescind his resignation. We need him to keep going forward. If you can't do that, don't go out for a firm. Ask Pete if he would help procure the next manager for the town. We don't need to spend this kind of money. That's all I have to say.
Is there anybody else? It's just, this is one of those like speak now or forever hold your peace kind of moments.
Don't give us that option.
It's just, as they take back the discussion, they don't reopen it based on something new they said. So if you're waiting for a second or later chance in this meeting, and there's still another, but in this meeting, now would be that time to speak so this body can continue to do its business. Mayor? Oh, somebody's coming to the microphone.
I'm Sue Wilson, and I've lived here for 32 years, 46th Avenue. I can honestly say I haven't been to a meeting in a really long time. I'm not sure how we got to where we are. I don't know you. You may be the best in the world. But if somebody leaves a job, don't you normally get someone in and then that person, before they leave, trains that person? And you work with them until they get up to speed as what we need. And how did we get so financially behind? We had those traffic lights, we went in and did like 17 projects, we had so much money from those traffic lights, and now all of a sudden we have no money. I'm just kind of not sure how we got to where we got financially, that we're worried about the 2.5 million. Is there nothing that we can do to get us back on track, to make some money? And I mean, I live on 46th Avenue, the traffic is so bad, and so people are speeding along, no one's giving tickets. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do for revenue. Why are we not doing anything? It's something also to believe that we are wanting to incorporate with either St. Pete or Pinellas Park. I don't know if that's true, that's what I heard. And that was kind of upsetting. We've been in Kenneth City for 65 years. I don't want to be Pinellas Park, and I don't want to be St. Pete. I want to be Kenneth City, that's why I live here.
Correct.
No, that goes to the revenue.
Thanks for your donation.
I don't think we need to go over interview questions on that right now.
No, I think those are just offered as resources for discussion.
Yeah. I think I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Unless there's further discussion. So I don't know what you're doing at the next meeting, unless you come up with an idea.
We're pretty well done speaking with this.
I mean, I said my idea, so, and that's what I'm gonna recommend at the next meeting.
I'd like to say something real quick. I never thought he was doing a bad job. There were some questions brought up about contracts. There was concerns about code enforcement, not keeping that in-house. And I always thought it was an agree to disagree situation. And us as a council, at least me personally, if there's a question or something gets brought up, you have to question that. You have to ask for documentation to make sure you're doing what's best for yourself, for the council, and for the people. And so how that turned into him resigning, I don't even understand that. And that was never a goal of mine. And so I just want to bring that up to everybody and let everybody know that where that came from, out of asking questions to make sure that we're making the right decision, I don't know how that took place or how that happened. And I just wanted to make everybody aware of that, so.
So Pete, think about
You're good? Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, I recommend we take a brief recess between the workshop and the meeting.
How long we have? You're the mayor.
How many can I
I did. You know what I did? I had this one of those little cards back in the day.
You can be honest, yeah.
If you can get past that, then you can roll it.
I know. I'm so distracted. Oh, shoot, I forgot to turn this on.